Persona 4 is a game that I personally enjoy, like, a lot. Played the spin-offs, and I've read the manga, and I constantly immerse myself in its world because of how much I enjoy it. That's all to say that I've heard what the characters have to say countless times, and have had more than enough time to analyze it and think for myself on what it might mean, if there's something else I didn't glean, first time around, second time around, who knows. Which is what leads me to the character I want to talk about today, being Adachi from Persona 4/Persona 4 Golden. And what I'd like to focus on is the speech that he gives you before you fight him at the end of the game, and spoiler warning if that wasn't too obvious. See, I've always felt that to an extent, Adachi was right about what he had to say to the investigation team before his boss fight, with the core issue being that he has the right message but is giving it to the wrong people. Before I dive into what he says specifically, I'd like to say this. When you play the game initially, you're either young or on a first playthrough. It's easy to write off the things he says since, he is the bad guy in the situation. He's done evil things that have gotten people killed and endangered even more lives. But all that aside, it doesn't or shouldn't take away from his point. Now let's get into what Adachi says, starting here. Now, let me cut in real quick, I'm so sorry. I realized that I should explain why I started here instead of when Adachi started speaking, since I don't want to come off like I'm cherry-picking or just trying to be dishonest. For this point, he doesn't really say anything that I consider noteworthy. Rather, what he says is pretty straightforward, but not the kind of thing that actually makes a point. He mentions why he became a cop in the first place and proceeds to justify his decision. And he also points out that while he did throw Saki and Mayumi into the TV, he didn't actually kill them, which, in a twisted way, is true. They were killed by their own shadows when they rejected them, which leads to him saying that since the TV world reflects the thoughts of others, that means that the real killers would have to be everybody else, including the investigation team. I'm not going to defend Adachi here or go much deeper into it, since at the end of the day, he's just being pedantic for the sake of not wanting to be wrong. Or he's trying to be a dick. You could flip a coin and you'd be right half the time. Anyways, I just wanted to get that out of the way real quick, just in case you think, hey, wasn't there some stuff we said before that? Sorry to take up so much time, let me get back to the main topic.
Let's be honest, there's nothing great about the real world, is there? It's just dull and annoying as hell. No one accepts that's the way things are. They're just stuck with it because they can't deny it either.
I'll focus on these two lines first and continue down the list of his monologue. Not to say that he's necessarily right about his first statement, but it's definitely a way that someone can view the world, and depending on who you're talking to, they're either going to agree or disagree. If you agree, then there's, nowhere left to go, but if you disagree, then neither person is going to convince the other, especially if the person who disagrees feels that life is full of opportunities. So, how do you tell someone who's miserable, can't see the positives in life, and isn't satisfied with how their life is going that they're wrong? How are you going to tell them to look for something that they've failed to find and have lost interest in? How would you, from your proverbial high horse, tell them that they need to change their outlook? You don't. Well, you can, and it's probably what a normal person would do, but it's not the kind of thing that someone who's suffering or just dissatisfied is going to care for. And the second statement is more important, if it wasn't already obvious. Then this statement highlights Adachi's view of the world, or even more. He already believes himself to be right that the world has nothing to offer. It's just a matter of whether or not you accept that there's nothing great about the world, or don't, because it's not something you can change. Now I'd like to bring your attention to his next three lines.
Those who actually succeed in life, they just happen to be born with a magic ticket called talent. If you don't have it, you can either accept or deny that fact until you die. That's your only choice. Once you realize that, all you have left in life is despair. The ultimate game over.
This statement right here is true. It's not necessarily a bad thing that people who are talented happen to succeed, but it's true that those who are talented have far more going for them than someone who isn't talented to begin with. In fact, think of it like this. If someone who's talented at, let's say, drawing, competes with someone who has no natural aptitude for it, who's going to win? It could technically be a toss-up. Maybe the person with no natural talent will end up as the winner, through sheer hard work and determination, but let's be a bit realistic here. What happens when the person with talent puts in as much work as the person with no natural talent? Well, then it becomes more obvious. The person with talent will win the majority of the time, and that's just how it is. It isn't a good thing or a bad thing, it's just real. Which takes us to the next line, which is once again true. If you aren't talented, then these really are your only two options. You can go on denying that you aren't talented, and maybe it would save your ego, or give you the drive to push forward, to maintain that air of dignity that you try to carry, but there's no guarantee that it'll last. Or you can accept that you aren't talented, and, that you might have to put in more work than other people just to achieve what they can with little to no effort. Personally, I see nothing wrong with accepting or denying this fact, but I will say that when you see the real deal, someone who really is talented, it's going to become more obvious that you aren't if that person isn't you. And his third statement is, once again, in my opinion, well, only half right. Despair is definitely a possibility if this realization that, someone has to come to, but it's not for everyone. Not everyone would simply fold in the face of a challenge, and even someone who realizes that they aren't talented may use that as the springboard that they need to aim higher. This realization is, inevitably, something that everyone has to come to. What Adachi is wrong about here is that, well, the response someone might have to it. There's no denying that people might simply despair at this thought and find themselves unable to go forward, but I'll say once again, this isn't for everyone, hence why I think it's only half true. Even when he says, wouldn't it be better if that kind of reality is wiped away, it's not wrong. A world where people suffer, a world where inequality exists, where one's efforts don't matter because someone will always be better than you, it doesn't sound crazy for someone to say that a world like that should be wiped away. Though it's also fair to point out that this is entirely coming from the perspective of someone who believes that they have nothing going for them, no way to compete, no real way to, reach the starting line due to something that they're missing. For all I know, someone who happens to have skill, talent, and the mental fortitude to push forward may not want any part in this world, which would, funny enough, be the investigation team.
Listen, you might have hopes and dreams right now, but that's only because you know nothing about reality. One day you'll see. You'll be faced with a boring reality that boxes you in, no matter where you go.
I want to say that this section right here confuses me to an extent. The first line does line up with everything he said up until this point, fitting with the aesthetic of being generally hopeless and not being able to find meaning and effort that won't or can't be rewarded. In fact, it makes perfect sense. Someone who's young and has never truly felt the real sting of failure, rejection, or any other unpleasant experience, you'd have no way of knowing what the future has in store yet, let alone judging the experience of someone who has been through that future, so to speak. The second line, though, feels like a sort of betrayal of that mindset. Almost like everything from before was meaningless and the only important thing was self-satisfaction, which for someone like Adachi I wouldn't exactly doubt, but I just bring this up because after this line he doesn't say anything along these lines again, which almost feels like a mistake, or maybe it was intentional. I'm more than willing to just admit at the end of the day that I really don't know, but feel free to let me know why you think he said this, or what you think it means in the comments below. Anyway, moving forward.
I'm telling you all this based on my own experience in life. Think about it for a second. Once everyone turns into shadows, they'll still keep on living, oblivious to all the things around them. So how's that different from the way it is now? No, this'll make things much easier for everyone.
It's worth saying that once again, he's right when he says this, but this isn't an explicitly or at all a good thing. If people became shadows, they'd simply wander through life as if there was some sort of fog around them. And in real life, it's a normal thing for people to ignore the things around them that don't directly concern them, though there are exceptions to the rule, like people who are more reactive than anything and don't remain ignorant when something happens around them.
Come on, how many people out there actually think about what's real or what's right and wrong? Next to none, I bet. It's useless to think about those things in the first place. You don't get anything out of facing reality, and there's no way to change it either.
Where these lines are concerned, they would be the truth to someone who has the same mindset as Adachi, and if you think that's too specific, or you think people don't like And if you think that's too specific or people don't think like him, then I could change the criteria to just anyone with a pessimistic outlook or an inferiority complex or even just depressed. Boils down to, if I can't do anything about it, then what's the point of it in the first place, or really worrying about it? Even just facing reality might be too much for some people, since if they fail or they don't get the results they want, then what was the purpose in doing anything?
I mean, what could be more boring than brooding over things you can't change? It's better to just ignore them and believe only what you want to believe in life. Doesn't that sound a lot easier? It would be awesome if everyone's life could be that easy.
As always, Adachi takes the most pessimistic outlook on these things, which leads to saying something like this. But can you say that he's wrong? If no matter what you do or think, an aspect of your life isn't going to change, then why would you waste your time and effort worrying and stressing yourself out about it? You're not going to make the situation any better, and luckily you won't make the situation any worse, because if you choose to ignore the problem, or aspect, or issue, or whatever unpleasant word, and you believe what you want to, then suddenly things do become easier for you. It won't fix your problem, but there wasn't anything you could have done to fix it in the first place, so at least a healthy bit of being delusional will set you right. All jokes aside, let me give you an example that totally isn't from personal experience in life. Let's say that you apply to several jobs every day and never get a response back from these jobs, or when you do, it's just to tell you that you didn't get the job. After a while of this humiliation ritual, you come to realize that your situation isn't getting any better. But what would you gain from stressing yourself out about this? Why would I make the conscious decision to be broke, jobless, and stressed out? At the very least, I can choose to give myself any number of reasons as to why the job search isn't going all too well and just live my life in the meantime. But at the end of the day, things aren't going to improve if I stress out over them.
No matter who you are, your lifespan is about 80 years or so, right? Then it'd be easier if we all just became shadows. No need to hold back anything. No more pretending we don't see things. Honestly, we don't need our world anymore. Better to let it be swallowed up and for mankind to turn into shadows. That's what all those people who are scared to death really want. So it's my duty to see that they get it.
I won't even say that he's right when he says this. I mean, if I was being pedantic or dishonest, I could just say that the first part of the statement is correct while ignoring the rest of what he says, but in all honesty, he's just kind of rambling right now. Or to be more specific, what he's saying would only become retroactively true if he were to succeed, and where it may apply wouldn't be some majority. It isn't as if all people pretend to not notice what's in front of them, or that all people are so afraid of death that they'd rather be able to ignore reality. I'm sure that there are people in the world that, even in this world, that can relate to feeling like this, but for a man who chooses not to connect with the majority of the people around him, I do find it a bit strange that he chooses to speak for the majority of people. Now, this last part might seem a little bit out of left field, since for all intents and purposes, this is the end of the whole speech, and thus the point of the video. But I wanted to bring attention to one more thing that was said to him by Yukiko. It feels like the kind of thing that was said in the heat of the moment, since if anyone takes more than 3 seconds to think about it, it's a completely reasonable thing. He says that if living is too painful for him, but he doesn't want to die, then it makes sense that nobody understands, because it makes no sense. But everyone gets to a low point in their life at some point. Or maybe you don't, and your life is perfect and has never had anything go wrong. I won't speak for you. And obviously, while there might be some times that life just, sucks, that doesn't just mean that you want to die. There's more than one way to explain why you wouldn't choose to end things just because you're at your lowest, and funny enough, the reason might just be the hope that things get better one day. This is simply all to say is that I always found it a little bit silly that she said this, and think this is where I'll actually end things. I thought this would be pretty fun to talk about. It was the kind of thing I'd always discuss with my brother when the topic came up, so it wasn't too hard to really put pen to paper. And hey, if there's something else you want me to talk about, then let me know, be it some concept or character from another game. At the moment, I think the next video will be about how shadows from Persona 4 antagonize people in their attempts to become their own being. But until then, see ya. And hey, I waited until now to say it, but if you really did enjoy this, then make sure to like, subscribe, and share the video. It'd be nice if this was something I could do more often. See ya.